would like to discuss about what I saw when I was in meditation. And this has to do with my future life living on Mars. So let's start from the beginning. I was doing Kundalini, like I always do in the morning. It's part of my daily healing practice of self-love and empowerment. And my body told me that I was going to start my period, basically. And I saw it. I never have seen an actual visual of my body communicating to me. And I saw this visual of my, you could say, my reproductive area, and I saw this little egg. I physically saw, you could say, with my third eye, a little egg. And I saw it coming like around a loop or something, I guess going through one of the fallopian tubes or something. And it was just right near the point when I guess it's gonna release. And I almost saw like it was at the point where it's gonna like crack or something, like an egg, you know, like when you see an egg and it, you know, it cracks. It's what I saw, a little tiny thing. And that was what propelled this whole vision forward into this Mars world. So I saw myself living on Mars, and there was a colony there. I remember the building, and it was basically like a dome, but it was more rectangular than what you think of the traditional dome. It went up, and it was long, almost like it was just this long, just rectangular sort of dome. It was very, very large. It was large. It kind of reminded me of like my high school. Okay, my high school was pretty big, and the way it was structured was very much like my high school, except there was only one level. So I remember I saw this being. And it was very green. I've never seen such a green being. He almost looked like he was leafy. Like his skin, he looked like he was a part of the plant kingdom more than you could say the animal kingdom. There's something about, I could almost see his veins, almost like we see veins in a leaf. It was very much that feeling I got, like his skin was very much leafy, except thicker. You know, leaves are very thin. It was a thicker skin. You could say it was like keratinized skin, like our skin is keratinized skin. But it had this very leafy look to it. So this being, I'm trying to remember how I got into this Mars world. I know it started with this ovary egg. And okay, now I remember. When I was in Kundalini and I saw this vision of my body telling me, you know, you're gonna start your period soon, and showing me this visual of this egg, I had this weird feeling where I looked at my stomach and I almost felt like there was two children in there, like twin children. It was just a very weird feeling. And in Kundalini, I was holding my lower stomach and my upper stomach, you know, sending healing energy to those areas because I felt guided to. And it felt like when I was looking down, like there was very small, you could say fetus in there, very, very small. And then all of a sudden, I saw myself on Mars. And I saw myself walking around. First I saw the mountains. Not mountains what you think of in Earth mountains. It just looked like blocks of sand or something. Can't really describe it. And everything looked red. It did look red. It looked very, the sun was everywhere. The land, everything just outstretched in all different directions. And I saw these mountains, and I remember seeing myself in you could say a suit. In a suit, just walking around. It was, you know, midday, and I feel like I was exploring. Okay, I wasn't too far away from, you could say, the, you know, our our home, our home. But I feel like I was wandering beyond the boundaries. Like, we have these strict boundaries that we couldn't go beyond because these boundaries were placed for a reason, for protection, because beyond that, you know, it hasn't been explored much. So I, of course, knowing me, I went beyond the boundaries, and I had my communication thing off for some reason, because I had it off because the fact that when you have it on, they know exactly where you are. Okay, so I was very like a tech geek. I remember in this lifetime I was a very tech geek, and I figured out a way to kind of cut it to where they, turn it off where they couldn't find me, because I was like exploring and I was thinking, I'm okay, I'm good. And then I just remember this cloud of dust or something coming in, and it was getting darker too, so it was getting very, very chilly. It was getting darker, and I just see this sort of cloudy, I don't know what to call it, it's nothing you could ever see on Earth, just coming towards me. And I remember I went into this cave. It was a very strange looking cave. It looked like there was like a doorway, because it looked nice. It looked very man-made, you could say, or alien-made. So I went in this cave for protection. And as soon as I went in, it's like I walked through this mist. I felt like my face touched, like you touch cobwebs. You're walking into like cobwebs and you get that feeling like, oh, there's something on you. Except it felt like a misty cobweb feeling. And all of a sudden I was in this cave, and it was just this huge cave for such just this doorway. It was very tall, but it was kind of a little bit more narrow. And I was in there, and the atmosphere felt different. I looked at my suit, and it said that there was like oxygen in this cave. I was like, how is there oxygen, enough oxygen for me to take off my suit? So I was very curious about that. And there was all these elements that were popping up on my suit, like these elements that are not common to Mars, that were just in this little cave thing. And out of the darkness came this green alien being. And tall. He was tall, maybe like 7 feet tall. And I looked very, very small compared to him. And his hands, he had like 4 fingers. 4 fingers, and they were, I would say, they were very long. Like his whole hand pretty much like covered my whole face. Like my whole entire face with just his single hand. He had very long limbs, I remember. Very long legs, very long limbs, and very shorter torso, you could say. And he didn't have a suit on, so I just saw like his full, complete self, you could say. Self that's completely organic, and he had like nothing on. No suit, nothing. And instantly when he walked up to me, I was not shocked. I was not surprised. And I was alone. I was kind of waiting it out, hoping that the storm would go away before it got officially dark, before it got really, really cold. So he walked up to me, and something like came out of his body. It's very strange. Came out of his body like a little tube. Came out of his lower body, or assume where his, you could say, reproductive system was. And again, I don't know if it was a he or she, but he did tell me Benjamin, so I assume it was a he. And this tube thing went in my body where my reproductive system is, and it almost like went around an egg in my body, and I don't know what it was doing, but it almost like it sucked this egg, and he pulled this thing out of his body, out of my body. And then I saw, it was very amazing, this little tube that just went out of his body into my body. And then this tube was just kind of, I don't know, it was like a snake, and it was kind of just hanging out in between us. And I saw that there was like a slime. There was like a slime at the tip of this sucking tube or whatever. And it was green. It was very green. And then all of a sudden it kind of like spit out this egg that now it was encased in this I don't know, the sphere that had like slime around it. It was very, very interesting. It was like floating. This egg was like floating, and it was like rising, and I was like, what is this? And it was expanding. The sphere was like expanding, and inside of it there was this, like, seeing this little whatever turn into like a fetus, and like growing, and it was very, very bizarre. And then I kept seeing these visions of this child, and it was almost like a hybrid child. It had huge eyes, you could say 3 times the size of like the normal eye, and very much looked human. Above all, it had more of a human genetics than you could say alien genetics. But it was just this amazing thing was happening. It was very odd, very bizarre. So what happened is I saw this vision, okay, at the same time. This all was like all happening at once. All of these images I'm showing to you was all like happening at once. It wasn't like a linear story where the beginning, middle, and end. It was like jumping around from all these this part and then move there, and it's all happening all at once, like running, like lanes in a highway are all going down the same way at once. You're like just hopping into different ones at the same time. It's really kind of confusing. So I saw me talking with him, this Benjamin. It was more of energy. We weren't even verbally communicating. We were just feeling each other's energies out. And there's a quietness and stillness. And I remember seeing myself going back to that cave like a lot after that, because he became like my friend. And the one thing I did see that was very interesting is he went somewhere in the back and he was leading me in the back of this cave. And then all of a sudden there was this, it almost looked like a cocoon of some sort of liquid material, almost. It was just kind of like a slime too. It was just like a slime, and we walked into this cocoon, and all of a sudden we were rising up, and almost into the ceiling. And I was a little scared, like, are we gonna hit the ceiling? But then the ceiling is like we went through it. We went through the ceiling. We went all the way up, like a ray, like a beam, into his spaceship that was very much, like invisible. We went all the way up and into his spaceship, and I saw the inside of his spaceship, and it was very interesting because he was doing something to my reproductive system. It was very, very, very interesting, but it was very high vibration to it. It was very angelic vibration, and energetically he was telling me about, we're Homo sapiens, and how there's a next generation of human evolution coming to this planet, and it almost like it was starting with Mars. Because I just remember floating, I was hovering, I was on my back, like I was laying on a bed, but I was hovering in midair, and this alien was just examining my reproductive system and examining my whole body. It was very, very interesting. And then I remember seeing a vision of being back on Mars. I was back on Mars, and I remember I snuck Benjamin, his name, into the place where we were all living, this dome-like structure, and he had a way to like make himself invisible. He had the ability to transform his body. Like he could transform it. It was very weird. And I basically introduced him to, you could say, the leaders of this Mars colony. And at first they thought it was my imaginary friend, because I was like, I want you to meet this alien Benjamin that I met. And I was very young too. I was younger than I am right now. I was probably like 13. I was very much like 13. And they didn't believe me, because they're like, there's nothing there. And then all of a sudden Benjamin like switched something on, and he was present, like fully there in his green alien body, alien thing, whatever it was. And the leader was just like, whoa. But the reason they couldn't really communicate with him, they couldn't feel what he was saying, because everything I would feel from him, it was like picking up intuitively. So you had to be really intuitively like tapped in. And we practiced this because I was seeing him a lot. So it got better at practicing how to intuitively sense what he's saying inside. So the leaders didn't really have any clue how to communicate. So I very much had to, communicate what this Benjamin individual wanted to say. And he didn't really have anything to say. He was just there, kind of there along for the ride sort of thing. because I think this Benjamin was more fascinated with me than anything else. He was very simple living. He didn't really need to attain anything. He wasn't seeking anything. He didn't want anything. He didn't have any agenda. He was just there because I asked him to come and meet the leaders, and he was my friend. And then all of a sudden, I went to this image, this visual, and I saw him and I almost in front of this camera, and it was being broadcast to Earth, and I was telling Earth, meet my new galactic friend, Benjamin, and that was like the first ever, you could say, TV showing an actual physical alien being. I feel like at that time there was talk about, I feel like the world came out and said, UFOs are real, there are other galactic beings out there assisting us all around this universe, but I don't think they were showing actual visuals of these beings. So that was the first televised, you could say, human interacting with a ET. It was very weird because I remember I was talking about this. I basically said that I was having a child. It was very odd. I was having a child, and people, assumed I was having a child with this alien being, but it wasn't like that. It wasn't any sort of sexual intercourse or nothing of that nature. It's almost like Benjamin showed me when we connected, that very moment when he came out of the shadows, because I went into his cave that had this bubble. He created this bubble in this cave where he could, have oxygen, and he could live without having his suit on. Because I do feel like he was, I don't know, I get the feeling he was banished from his people for some reason. It's like he didn't want to do something that his alien, you could say, beings wanted to do. He very much wanted to have just a peaceful life of solitude. And he was mining for something. It was like there was something in this cave that he was collecting. He was very much like a scientist, a researcher. He was very much a scientist, very curious about other worlds. And he would live on many worlds and just study the world. He lived on there for he was probably 300, 400, maybe 500 years old, and he went to all these planets, and he lived on them for maybe a decade, our time, and just explore, just explore around. He was a brilliant scientist, and he liked to be alone. He was very much satisfied with, being alone until he met me, and we had this connection, and he showed me, as soon as we connected, we met, this third energy instantly came, and this third energy is instantly manifested in this tube coming out of him and going in me. It's like a form of a bond. It's like linking something. It's like making a bond. And when that connected, when this bond happened, when this little tube that came out of him came inside of me, and you collected this egg, this third energy, which is, you could say, the fetus is born from that. It's like a true bond creates this third energy. It's like the two becoming one, meshing together and creating something else entirely. And that was this floating fetus. I don't know. So I'm trying to remember other parts of this vision I had, or when I was in meditation. I just remember this feeling of Benjamin being very loving and being like a spirit guide to me. And I just got this feeling that it was like accident. It was like an accident that this fetus that had human genetics and alien genetics happened. It wasn't something that, little aliens in a science lab stripping away DNA and mixing DNA with other DNA, like that sort of thing. It was seemed spontaneous. That's what it seemed like. But it was because of this connection, like this bond is what made this all happen. It's like this link. This link created this other link, which is this third energy. It's like you link me to this alien, and then this link itself makes an entire another link. So I really need to share this experience with you guys, because I know that this is more than just, you could say, a figment of my imagination. I feel like there's definitely something to our dreams and to what we feel and experience in meditation. Because I think there is more to this experience into life than what we can physically see with our tactic senses. And I was there. It almost felt like I was there, and it was totally like a future reality. Because then I saw Mars today, and it was totally different. There was no colony. There was just like dirt and just going for miles and miles. There's no civilization for miles and miles and miles, like at all. And I remember I met a Benjamin before, an energy of Benjamin, and I didn't really know who this Benjamin was. I didn't get a visual of the appearance or anything. It was a quick sort of voice or thing I picked up, an energy I picked up, and it had the Benjamin attached to it. So when this individual told me Benjamin, it was like, I remember connecting. I was like connecting with that memory of picking up a Benjamin energy around me that was like a spirit guide that was assisting me, helping me in this incarnation. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it very interesting and insightful.